3 is this Saturday, this weekend, and it has the potential to create a once-in-a-lifetime, legacy-defining fight. And if you can't tell already by the introductory little thumbnail, well, we're going to get into it and talk about it, okay? So, let's just go ahead and let's begin this by talking about Merab the Machine Dvalishvili. Now, Merab is taking on Petr Yan for the second time this Saturday. And let's talk about who Merab is. Let's talk about his resume, because this guy is on a path to becoming one of the best UFC MMA fighters we have ever freaking seen, man. So let's begin with his resume. Beat John Dodson. That's a solid win. That's his introductory win. Then he beats Marlon Moraes, a little bit probably out of his prime, but also still a very dangerous opponent. Beats Jose Aldo, a little bit over the hill as well, but still was a killer in the 135-pound weight class. Some of the best takedown defense we have ever seen in MMA, period. A legend of the sport, one of the best of all time in his own right. Petr Yan dominated him, I believe 2 or 3 years ago, dominated it. And potentially is going to have another win over one of the, maybe like, behind, it probably goes Merab, obviously, is the bantamweight GOAT. And then you have like Aljo and Dominic Cruz. And then Yan is probably right there. Even though it's been a little up and down, wishy-washy with his past performances and fights in the past couple years with the controversial Sean O'Malley loss, the Aljo situation, but man, he's one of the best bantamweights to ever do it, especially skill-wise. And he has the potential of being able to beat the guy for the second time this upcoming Saturday. Beat Henry Cejudo, one of the best flyweights of all time, former double champ, an Olympic gold medalist wrestler, a very good, well-rounded fighter, one of the best lower weight class guys to ever stand in the octagon. Sean O'Malley twice, possibly the most dangerous striker in the 135-pound weight class history. He has knocked out almost everyone except Yan, but a lot of people counted out O'Malley in that fight. A lot of people. And that fight was close. I rewatched it the other day. I'd still probably give it to Yan, but my goodness was it close. And he was number 11 in the world at the time. I believe coming off a Raulian Paiva win. Okay? So Sean O'Malley is not some bum. He's one of the best and most devastating strikers in 135-pound history. Also beat Umar Nurmagomedov. And if he wins this Saturday, Merab, there's a good shot we'll see that fight later on in 2026. The rematch. If Umar he gets past Deiveson, Figueiredo, in his most recent performance over Corey Sandhagen. During the time of the 135-pound weight class being the best division in the UFC, the most talent depth stacked division in a period of like 5 years and still going on. It's been one of the best divisions in the UFC, if not the best, the past few years, and Merab has just dominated everyone. Made it look easy. Too easy. And let's talk about some more things. He is the GOAT of the bantamweight division, by far. There's no argument that he is not. Look at his resume. Look at the title fights. Petr Yan, Sean O'Malley, Umar, Corey. Petr Yan for the second time. It was O'Malley 2 times. And the guy probably should have got to the title even quicker if it wasn't for Aljo. Like when he fought Henry Cejudo, he already probably should have been the champion by then. So he's by far the GOAT of the bantamweight division. And he may be the most dominant fighter ever. It's quite possible. Dominance-wise, you think of guys like Islam Makhachev currently. George St. Pierre, who is probably my GOAT. I don't know, I'm probably going to make a GOAT video in the next couple weeks. He was dominant in a lot of fights, but also would get in some close fights. Arguably lost to Johnny Hendricks. John Jones, very dominant for a while, lost to Dominic Reyes. And should have lost to Anthony Smith if he didn't continue fighting. Split decision Thiago Santos. And then the only other guy you can really compare dominance-wise, especially as a champion, is Khabib. He was undefeated. But even then I would put dominance-wise. I don't know. But he probably is the most dominant fighter ever. especially being the guy at the top of the weight class, the reigning, defending, undisputed champion. And at this point, especially with the win this weekend, he's probably top 5 fighter, regardless of weight class, of all time. There's very guys you can put ahead of him with this good of a resume and this inflicting his dominance. The machine. And, I mean, the dude's lapping his division at this point. And this is a point we're going to make at the end of this video of why a specific fight should happen. It's just been an incredible run for Merab. He's probably going to continue it this Saturday. I'm predicting him to win. I think it'll be a little closer than people think, but I think he's going to get it done. Of course, I don't know anybody who's not picking him, but just what he's been able to do in probably the best division in the UFC right now, maybe 170 is a little bit better. I don't know. Skill-wise, though, 135. And just the dominance, the insane cardio, the insane beatdowns that he puts on against his opponents. Like I said, he's most likely top 5 of all time, getting close to that top 3 range, getting close. I mean, the guy wins 3 more title fights. He's probably the GOAT. Like, legitimately. Especially in bantamweight, these guys are good. They are dangerous. They are probably the highest skill level of competition you can face in the UFC. Moving on. Yeah, I forgot I put that there. He's the GOAT, especially of the 135 division. Probably not overall yet, but he's just so good. I'm not even like a crazy Merab fan, but I'm still going to glaze him because he deserves it. I'm glazing the machine. Moving on to the other man who's defending his world UFC title this Saturday, Alexandre Pantoja. And I wanted to talk about Pantoja to make a point of what this guy is doing that is so underrated, so underappreciated, and so impressive. Let's take a look at his resume. Brandon Moreno twice. One of the best flyweights to ever do it. One of the most skilled flyweights we have ever seen. He's beat him twice, beat him for the belt, beat him earlier on. Doesn't necessarily count as much, but still. I mean, the win aged quite well. The guy's on a 2-fight winning streak at the moment, Brandon Moreno, and also takes on a young and up-and-comer, Tatsuro Taira. And I'm predicting Moreno to win that fight. I think it's going to be very close, but that win is only aging better because the only guys that have been able to beat Moreno are him and Figgy in a close split decision to Brandon Royval, who Pantoja has also beat twice. And Brandon Royval, even though he hasn't touched the title, skill-wise and performance-wise, and if you look at his resume, also a top flyweight of all time. Brandon Royval is a very good fighter, very well-rounded, and a hard guy to beat. And not only is Brandon Royval super hard to beat, one of the few guys that have been able to do it in the past few years, Joshua Van, is who Pantoja is going to strangle this weekend. He also has a win over Manel Kape, which is aging better and better. Manel Kape is about to take on Brandon Royval. Alex Perez has been a staple in the UFC flyweight division. Looked really good recently against Asul Almabayev until Almabayev pulled off that late submission win. Steve Erceg. Now these, we'll talk about this as we inch closer towards the end of the video. Steve Erceg. Not the craziest win. Solid fighter. Short notice. Did keep it close with Pantoja, but still a good solid win. Kai Asakura, as we have figured out, is not that great of a win. Can't believe he got that title shot in the first place. Kind of crazy to think about. Coming off a loss to Tim freaking Elliott, dude. I mean, my good. That was his last fight, right? It was Timbo. I believe he's moving up to 135. Kai Kara France. Also, I think he's always been a little bit overrated, but still a really solid win. He's been at the top of the flyweight division for the past few years. And then he has Joshua Van this weekend. And that's only going to add to this very good resume of Alexandre Pantoja. Also has so many more wins as well. I wanted to highlight these because these are the best wins. But he's been doing this a long time. He's even older in this career. I believe he's over the age of 36. And this resume he's putting together and just this legacy that he is building has been so underappreciated. And I wanted to highlight that mainly because he is very close to DJ. I am not going to say he has taken the throne of the flyweight division yet, because I don't think he has, and we'll talk about that. But man, he's closing in. He's getting really freaking close, dude. Let's look at DJ's resume real quick. Ian McCall. these resumes are also very comparable. Ian McCall, if you know ball, you know ball. Ian McCall, didn't mean to rhyme. Ian McCall was a very sought after prospect, smaller up and coming guy that fought in WEC and then the UFC in the early days. Took Mighty Mouse to a draw in their first bout. Very good fighter during his prime. You can probably on this list kind of compare him to maybe Steve Erceg. Very skilled and very good. Just kind of didn't realize the full potential of that. Joseph Benavidez twice. The Joseph Benavidez twice and the John Dodson twice is very comparable to Pantoja. 2 wins over Brandon Moreno and Brandon Royval. Kind of 2 earlier wins over the 2 guys, and then 2 later wins. And both sets of guys were staples of the flyweight division. Just never could really sniff the title. Or Moreno did, but just can't beat Pantoja. Couldn't get it done. But a point I'd like to make here is that Moreno and Royval, you put them prime for prime against Benavidez and John Dodson, they're probably working them. It's not probably going to be a straight-up outclassing, but the skill level there, those are probably better wins. However, it's still, we'll talk about the rest of his wins, Kyoji Horiguchi. Freaking just came back at 135 and beat Tagura Ilimbekov. And that was even in Kyoji's younger years in a smaller weight class where he may be a little bit better, honestly, in my opinion. That's still a really solid win. Comparable to kind of like Kai Asakura. Fought outside the UFC a lot. Powerful, fast Asian guy. Not comparing them just because they're Asian, but it does work. But Kyoji is obviously the better fighter. Henry Cejudo arguably won that second fight as well, too. I haven't rewatched that in a while. I probably should, though, sometime. But beat Henry Cejudo, who went on to be a double champion in the UFC. Had some couple of solid fights at 135. Beat Dominic Cruz and Marlon Moraes. And beat TJ Dillashaw, even though I was at 125. But Henry Cejudo had a great career, and DJ holds a win over him. And that's probably the best win on this entire list. Maybe except Brandon Moreno, just because of the time that Mighty Mouse beat Henry Cejudo. Nonetheless, he also beat a guy in Tim Elliott, who recently just beat Kai Asakura. So I think people, just because flyweight was so unpopular, and it's still getting disrespected right now, always go back and be like, DJ had all these great title defenses and wins, but against who? Against these guys. These are really good fighters. And like I said, and I think Pantoja overall, these are like all his title fights except a couple, like with the Moreno and earlier Royval fights and such. They're very comparable. Okay, but say if this is kind of all we had to look at, you would probably lean Pantoja as being the GOAT of the weight class at 125. However, DJ, I believe, had 12 consecutive title defenses. That is a lot, and that is hard to do. And the guys he fought in some of those weren't slouches in general, just didn't have the best resumes, but they were still skilled fighters. Guys like Ray Borg, Ali Bagatinov, I believe he fought Wilson Hayes. Not the best wins resume-wise, but those guys were still solid fighters if you go back and look. So the volume does matter, and the length of time he was able to do it. And while Pantoja has had some very good dominant performances, DJ was more dominant. So I think right now DJ is still probably a decent amount ahead of Pantoja, especially considering the volume of title defenses and wins that DJ had and the dominant finishes that he had. Pantoja has his own dominant finishes, of course, too. And overall, probably fighting a tad bit of stiffer competition, for sure. However, he's really freaking close, man. And, you have Manel Kape and Brandon Royval coming up. If Manel Kape gets that may run back him and Pantoja with a fresh new contender. Or if Taira goes out and beats Moreno, or if even Moreno wins and, say, Royval beats Kape, we could see that fight ran back, or we get a new challenger in Tatsuro Taira. Flyweight is stacked right now. And with 2 more wins there for Pantoja, maybe even 1. I don't know. I'd still you can make a whole video about this whole situation right here. But it's really freaking close, and it's really freaking impressive, and it's super underappreciated, and so much disrespect, man, for Alexandre Pantoja. And I'm sick of it, man. The guy is a killer. He's already a legend. The dude is probably top 15 of all time at this point. If you look at that resume, okay, the only flyweight above him's DJ. And then there are not a whole lot of guys you can put above him that aren't already like top 10 guys. Like, dude, I'd probably put him above Habib in the GOAT list. Honestly. Yeah, I said it. Oh, you freaking Habib Glazers. But with all that being said, this is the point I want to make. This fight has to happen. Merab Dvalishvili and Alexandre Pantoja has to happen. This is such a big deal for both guys' legacy. Now, I would pick Merab. You'd probably maul him, the strength and physicality. However, we have not seen Merab fight a guy with the submission threat and grappling prowess of Alexandre Pantoja. And even though he will be the smaller guy, that could also work to his advantage, being faster, being a little more slippery in the scrambles. This would be a lot closer fight than I think people would expect. I would give Pantoja the advantage skill-wise on the feet, even though the pressure of Merab would probably break through that advantage. Nevertheless, though, this is such a close, competitive fight. It is the best fight you can probably make for both guys at this point, especially if they both go out there, which they probably will, and defend their title this Saturday. And even if you say Merab Umar happens in like April or May or something after Umar beats Daverson, and Pantoja fights a guy like Tyra Moreno or Kopp, it's somewhere around that time as well. Book it for the end of the summer. This fight can happen either immediately after these two defend their belts Saturday. Think it could happen pretty fast, especially if Merab dominates, because I think Pantoja is going to dominate. Don't think Merab will, but if he does, this fight is so close. And we deserve this fight as fans. It is one of the highest, if not the highest level of martial arts skill you could present, barring probably Islam and Ilya at 155. This is an elite fight, a fight that would be legacy defining for both. Merab winning over Pantoja, even though he'd be the smaller guy, that is a champion on the resume. Okay, that is another freaking champion on the resume. Even though it's a weight class below, that's another champion on the freaking resume. That would maybe submit him as the GOAT, or put him in like that top 3 area for sure. I need to make a GOAT video because I've never really looked at it too much. It's hard to do. Pantoja, even taking the fight and having a close competitive fight with Merab, I think would even bump up his legacy. But imagine if he wins. If he beat Merab, by far the best flyweight of all time, if he beat Merab, you know how far that would skyrocket Pantoja to being in the top 10, probably even maybe top 5 best fighter of all time? It'd be cinema. Absolute cinema. I think they need to book this fight at some point. Either after both these guys defend Saturday, give them one more defense into summer, something like that. This fight has to happen. It's a fantastic fight. I would pick Merab, but I think Pantoja would make it pretty difficult. I think he'd be hard to hold down on his back, and I think Pantoja would not be afraid to chase submissions, and I think it could get Merab in trouble. I think this would be an exceptional fight, and it would be so legacy defining for both guys. And the UFC has a great opportunity of rolling over, especially if both of them have fantastic performances. UFC 323. And what's cool about this card is like they're kind of both like, even though Merab and Yan is the main event, I would say that Pantoja Van fight is a little more hype because of Van's kind of little star power thing he has going on. Like, even though the marquee fight is Merab and Yan, it's kind of just two co-headliners with how the card was built and how people view this, or at least in my mind. So imagine both these guys go out, have a dominant performance, and they face off in the octagon after. Probably won't happen, but that would be sick. If I'm Pantoja, I'm calling out Merab specifically, or at least the winner of the fight in the main event. I'm calling them out specifically, and I'm getting in that octagon to face off with Merab, who will most likely win. That's what I would do if I was Pantoja. Probably gets you some more money. Possibly could be on that White House card too, especially if they ran some fights in between for the two guys, another defense for each. But the legacy definingness of what this fight would be for the whole entire sport of UFC, in MMA. I think would just be incredible. I think it'd be an incredible fight. And I want to see it. And I think a lot of people would want to see this, especially if you're like a real UFC fan. So, but that's it for today's video. Hope you guys enjoyed it. Let me know in the comments if you kind of disagreed with my analysis of Pantoja getting really close to DJ on the flyweight GOAT list, or how high and how much glaze I was giving these guys of how high I would rank them in the GOAT list. I need to make a GOAT list. I'm probably going to do that in the 6-week break we have after the next weekend's card. But let me know what you guys think about this fight, and if the UFC should make this fight. They should. And please like the video. Please subscribe to the channel. See no MMA. Yeah. Let's go! Anyways, hope you guys enjoyed the video. Thank you for watching, and until next time.